everybody. I'm Rivka. I am the co-founder of Hooligan Magazine and co-host of Nerd Gaze. And I'm here with Amanda Celine Miller. And she's actually going to introduce herself.
Hey guys, so I'm a voice actress. I am the voice of Boruto in Boruto Naruto Next Generations. I'm the voice of Sailor Jupiter in Sailor Moon Crystal and Eternal and all that. I'm also in the Danganronpa video games. I played Junko Enoshima and Toko. And then I guess right now one of my bigger things is Kid Cosmic. I voiced Joe it's on Netflix. It's the latest show by Craig McCracken, so check it out. But yeah, that's me.
Hell yeah, that's all so cool. I actually was looking up Boruto and Naruto voice actors yesterday. Just was looking. I just wanted to see. I actually did not know that Naruto was voiced by an old lesbian.
Yeah?
An older lesbian.
No, she's great. She's so funny too.
I love it. I was so happy. I was so thrilled. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
She's just a feisty little she puts up with no. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was like, Miley puts up with no shit. Like if somebody at a show is disrespecting her, or even just I don't know, man. I've seen her be like, what are you trying to say? Get out of my face. I'm just I want one day to have boundaries as strong as hers.
I would hope that Naruto similarly has those boundaries.
Miley probably has more. Miley teaches Naruto. Miley teaches the Hokage how to have boundaries.
Damn, that's sick. Yeah. Well, I wanted to start off by kind of asking you about what got you into nerdom, and when you were a kid or when you were younger, what kind of content were you watching, and what characters you identified with?
So my dad was a big nerd. He had comic books from the 80s and whatever. I was born in the 80s, but he had comic books from the 70s and 80s at home. So he was a big Batman guy. So he got me into Batman when I was a kid, and before I could really talk, I called it Batgan. I was like Batgan. And then I got into Sailor Moon when I was a kid, but I watched it before I came to the States because I was an Air Force kid, so I grew up all over. And I saw it when I was in Germany. And I was like, what is this show? I didn't understand it at the time because I don't really speak German. And it was I'm like, there's magical girls, there's glitter. I don't know what the plot is, but I didn't even remember what the show was called. And then when I moved to the States and Toonami started, Sailor Moon was on there. And I was like, that's that show, but I can actually understand it now. So Sailor Jupiter actually was my favorite character. And I loved her for so many reasons, but part of it was because as the new girl, I was always moving, so I was always the new girl at school. I was always the one who they were like, oh, that's the new girl, don't talk to her. And then I was also really tall for my age, in 4th and 5th grade. I played soccer, so I was, they're like, oh, she's big and strong, but also I'm like, I like Disney princesses, and it was that kind of I like all of it. And she was the first time I had seen a female character, it was the 90s, it's the first time I'd seen a female character who it showed that she encompassed all of it. She's like, you can like this stuff, and it's good. Doesn't make you less of a woman or less of whatever. Yeah. So that was Sailor Moon was actually a huge influence for me when I was a kid.
That's amazing that you get to be in that realm now in such a specific and beautiful way. And I'm curious, I saw you do a panel. I was doing research. I did a little research. But I saw you talk about someone asked you whether you feel comfortable or uncomfortable with certain roles, and you said, well, I don't really care, it's not about if something's perverted or weird, I don't care about that. But you said that you have discomfort if someone's asking you to act cuter or this certain feminine depiction in anime predominantly. This happens where the more digestible the female character, the girl character is, the better it is for that anime, because it's, and you can say this for a lot, but it's how can you make this character most accessible for the male gaze or whatever it is. So I'm curious how you feel about feminine or women depictions or girl depictions within anime.
It's the weirdest thing because I feel like some of the depictions in anime are so empowering and so fleshed out beyond what they had for the time. Some anime is so ahead of its time. Even I know there's a lot of controversy recently about the Cowboy Bebop, like, Faye's costume. But the thing is, even though her costume was like much more male gazy, the character was always like in the anime, like she wasn't just eye candy. Like everybody in that show is so complex. So anime can both be like really complex, great storytelling, and then it can also be very tropey. And honestly, like maybe that's something in myself I need to investigate as to why cutesy characters make me uncomfortable. Like maybe it's something in me that I'm not comfortable with. Maybe there's a part of me, I used to be very much like the tomboy, like I'm not like other girls, whatever. So it's like, maybe I need to embrace that part of me, and maybe it's not so bad. But I do feel like in anime, those characters tend to, like you said, they don't have a lot going on up there. I'm just shy and I'm just unthreatening, and it's just like, so whenever they have me play those kind of characters, it's usually because I'm crazy. So it's like, hi, I'm going to be this character, but I'm also going to murder you in the end. And it may just be the sound. Like, I just don't think I have a cutesy sound. I think I have, like, a snarky sound. So, yeah, I maybe that's something I need to explore more, but I have a hard time with, like, shy, moe kind of characters, as well as characters who just seem to exist to be cute. Yeah. And maybe that's me not doing the work of finding what makes them tick. Like, why are they being cute? But it does feel like they're just being cute because that's how they were written, and not because they're like, I have a deep, interesting past, and that's getting too dramatic. I was going to be like, and I'm actually codependent, and this is my way of trying to get people to like me, but really, I just, like, who knows? I don't like that. Might be overthinking it. It's anime.
I mean, I don't know, though, because anime does do that, where they're like, here's this really complex, trauma-filled backstory. But oftentimes, like, okay, for instance, I'm thinking about, have you seen Fruits Basket? Yeah. Cool. I love Fruits Basket. Me too. I love it. And so the main character, she just kind of exists to help all the boys or, like, all the other characters. Like, she's very much like, she's just very nice and kind. And I love that show, but I did notice, I'm like, wow, I would really love to know more about her.
Yeah, as the main character. Yeah. It is an interesting point, because I loved Fruits Basket, and she was actually one of the cutesy characters that didn't get on my nerves as much, because she felt earnest. She genuinely was that positive, and that was really sweet. But you're right, like now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it feels like things happened to her. Like horrible things. But it's like, we're more than just our trauma. Like, what do you like? What do you not like? Like, that's a good point. I'm like trying to think about, like, I didn't really know who she was outside of being kind and very giving and very self-sacrificing, which I learned, therapy. But I learned there are boundaries you need to have. And, like, you cannot give up your entire self for another person to the point where you lose yourself. Which happened. Which yeah. Very horribly. And it's like on that show... Yeah, that's true. Like when she lost, like, man, this like made me think I need to go back and like rewatch it and be like with a different lens. Yeah.
I mean, there's like a very traumatic, like violent fall. Like she gets really physically hurt because she's sacrificing herself for this person she loves. Yeah, which in anime there are very little boundaries. Like I've been watching a lot of romantic anime, just like, it's where my brain just like, I'm like, I need this right now. And even I've been watching like queer coded anime, straight up gay anime, and it's really wild because so like for like the straight romantic ones, it's kind of similar in that there's always like this tug and pull, but like when they confess to each other, they're like, I love you, and it's like, but you've barely gotten to know each other.
I feel like anime can be, I mean, obviously take responsibility for your own life and stuff, but I feel like anime gave me a really bad model for what love should be. And also like love, like rom-coms in general. I love rom-coms. I love the whole like, I'm an emotionally unavailable man, but I'll fall for you. It's like, that's not how that's gonna work. If they're emotionally unavailable, they pretty much stay that way, or they do the hot and cold thing. It's not. Like in real life, like it feels like love. That's my message to you. If you have to fight for it or have to prove yourself to get someone to love you, or if you feel like you have to somehow like merit it, you have to earn it from that person, run away. Because that's like, I feel like that was my whole 20s. I'm like, if I just show them how funny I am, if I just show them if I just post a cute photo and they happen to see it, oh, they liked it, and they just like make my day. And I realize now, I'm like, it should not be that hard. So yeah, anime, but it has that whole trope of like the really bubbly girl and then the guy whose heart she melts, and it's like, I mean, I still like the trope, but at the same time, in like Naruto, you know, Sakura's like crazy about Sasuke, and like in Boruto, I mean, I don't know if I should spoil anything, but like, you know, they're together. They have a kid. She's one of the main characters, so like it's not that big a spoiler. But like there's an episode where like he comes back because he's like in the woods for like 9 years, like not raising his kid, and then him and Sakura, like they don't really share. Like it's supposed to be cute, but it's not cute. Like now as an adult, I'm like, hug her. Right. You made a kid with this woman. You are married to this woman, and this is the first time you're seeing her, and he's just still like emotionally unavailable. And she's like, and Sarada even says, she's like, I don't think Dad loves you, or in kind of like a less mean way. But it's just like, man, that is not healthy. And she's like, it's okay. I know he loves me because of like one thing he does, and it turns out it's just him like kind of poking her in the forehead, like
always the poke.
And she's like, I know he loves me. I'm like, if you're gonna build a life with somebody, you might need a little more than that. So
I think about that all the time. I also think about okay, this is gonna take us into a new direction sort of, but I've been watching we watched Yuri on Ice, yeah, which is great, and it's really queer coded, but they just didn't go all the way with it, which I was like, you went that far?
Everybody told me about it.
I know.
They were like, oh, it's so great, it's so gay, and then like I watched it, I'm like, are they gonna kiss? Like I think at one point they made, you know, they had like the marriage thing, but I'm like, nothing.
Like that
whole thing. I'm like, you have people in like glitter on ice, and you're
the most homoerotic thing. Yeah, I know.
I'm like, who are we fooling?
So
go full gay.
It's full. I know, go full gay. And like, here's the thing: is like, yeah, there's this like weird. So I'm gonna say this. So my family's from the Soviet Union. So like now it's broken up, and you know, Russia's still like the main, you know, media. That's where people consume media, like if you're from the post-Soviet Union, because you're speaking Russian, right? So it's like my parents watch a lot of Russian media, and it's so repressed. Like it is like there's so much gay shit or like homoerotic stuff, or like that it's there. Like there's men wearing makeup, there's drag, but they just don't act like it's gay. And the same with Japan. Like it's like the same.
It's totally straight.
No, that's not. We're just being men being men. We're just being bros. They're growing out. Yeah, we wear makeup and stuff, and that's fine. I'm like, okay, cool way of looking at masculinity, but like, also, come on. Just call it. It's really interesting, and they're both really repressed. Like, very like things are very like hush hush. Yeah. And so I've noticed that it's like a cultural thing because in Yuri on Ice, it's a Russian Japan. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I mean, there's you can look at a bunch of other countries that are similar, but specifically these two. I was just like, whoa. And I had this moment too where I was like, okay, things can get so gender fluid. Things can get so queer. And like, what is, like, when you're cast to play a boy or something, like, it's such an interesting thing. Yeah, like you look up Naruto and it's not another small boy playing the part. It's like it's like gender bending. It's like, you know.
It's interesting. I mean, part of it's just logistical because if you have an ongoing show where the character stays the same age for a long time, if you cast an actual little boy, their voice is going to change in like I hear that they have that problem with Charlie Brown. They have to recast the actor like every 4 years. And then, but when it comes to Boruto, it's actually interesting because I find that I have an easier time connecting to Boruto than I do to a lot of my female characters, but I wonder if maybe that's that same thing of like, well, first of all, Boruto is closer to my natural voice. Like, it's not that far off. It's just like, yeah, I'm Boruto. Like, whereas like my female voices, I'm having to go like all the way up here, and it's just like actually like a farther jump. But also, yeah, maybe there is like that part of me that like hasn't fully embraced the feminine, or I don't know. But yeah, with Boruto, it's really interesting because it is kind of a chance to be as unabashedly like cocky as I want to. He's just like, he has that overconfidence of like, yeah, I can do it. But you know what? Honestly, you need that in life. Like I've been finding so much of life is just fake it till you make it. I'm like talking directly into camera because I'm like, y'all, I'm giving you my life lessons that I've learned. But like, nobody knows what they're doing. we all like, if it's just about carrying yourself like you know what you're doing, and people will start being like, oh well, because they're all secretly panicking, so they're like, oh well, this person seems like they know what they're doing, so they'll just go with it. Like a lot of life is the emperor wearing no clothes. So if you look like you know, like it's like, oh yeah, the emperor's wearing clothes, then everybody else will just follow. They don't have to know that you're like, I can totally see the emperor's junk just swaggling in my face. So yeah, why did I start talking? I was talking about Boruto, and now I'm talking about like junk.
We're talking about gender.
Gender and just like the confidence of that. So like, yeah,
We're talking a little bit about like the sort of, we're talking about gender, and then you're also talking about sort of like connecting with this femininity part. Do you feel like nerdom has been sort of a way for you to embrace the kind of feminine that you are? Because I feel like, for me at least, when I started, because I started reading comics, Batman, DC, all that stuff, really edgy, like trying to prove I'm edgy and I'm masculine. I'm one of the boys when I was like 14, right? And like, you know, the music I listened to, everything I did, I had to do this like edgelord shtick to show that I was smart, or like I'm one of the guys, don't treat me like a girl thing. So it's like all this internalized misogyny. And then later I was like, it's a gender thing. But, you know, it's a combination. But nerdom was what made me feel like I could be the kind of feminine that I wanted to be. Because I noticed that within nerd culture, like this idea of femininity that's so popular in the mainstream, you know, within mainstream culture, like maybe the characters are hyper feminized, but the people within nerdom, it's like there's so much more neutrality there. So I'm curious. It's a lot to unpack.
Okay, so so you're saying, well, first of all, I'm still an edgelord. I'll always be an edgelord. Knows no gender. I like the darkest jokes out there. But I will say, yeah, I think nerddom to me feels like the theater kids of the comic world. It's just like all like the, not misfits. I mean, I guess kind of, but it's like the miscellaneous people. So I think there was a lot more of that kind of like, oh yeah, you can. What is the line from Alice in Wonderland where it's like, don't worry, we're all mad here, or something like that. So it felt much more like welcoming of like the nuances of different shades of weird and of gender expression and all those things. And then you said something about, something that inspired me about like the way female characters are written. And I find that there's a problem that kind of goes either way, where it's like sometimes we go, oh, she's a badass woman, and then they just write her like they write a traditional dude. And then I feel like I want to see, like, I really liked the way Wonder Woman handled it, because they made her, it was unique to her, like her experience of the world. She was vulnerable, she could be naive, but she wasn't dumb. She was just naive to the ways of this world, and she had hope for things, but she was also strong. Like, I like that, as opposed to, I feel like there have been a lot of very one-dimensional, strong female characters. Where it's like she shows no vulnerability, she shows no character arc. Her flaw is that she's been perfect and she just didn't believe in herself. I'm like, no, we're humans and we grow, and I definitely want to see more of that in comics and like having the bad side of, let's sound weird, but like the bad side of women, where it's like not just women, but like I have crappy parts of myself. I have bad habits, or sometimes I can be, you know, like rude to my friends if I'm having a bad, or, you know, like I want to see the whole spectrum of humanity, and not just like, oh, she's perfect, everybody around her sucks, or, you know, whatever. Like I think we're finally starting to get there. Like the more representation there is, the more people are going to have, I think, room and tolerance for the nuance and complexity. I hope so, because I don't want to see anybody be perfect, man or woman. I want to see, but I also don't want to just see the anti-hero all the time too. Sometimes you just want to see like a Ted Lasso, where you're like, he's a fully developed character. He has his traumas. He has his quirks and his bad habits, where he like doesn't express his feelings until, you know, they bottle up. But he's also endearing and positive, and I just think I think that's why people gravitated to that character so much. And I know that's not nerd culture, but it's still like